As part of his effort to ensure that this presidency is the most corrupt in American history, Donald Trump has made another regulatory move that has no good faith basis and has no rational justification other than to hide his own criminality and personal profit. What I'm specifically talking about today is the fact that he's directed the U.S. Department of Treasury to no longer enforce what's known as the Corporate Transparency Act. Now, this is a law that's intended to require and enforce the requirement that the beneficial owners of accounts that use the U.S. financial system disclose their true identity. It means that if you're moving money through a U.S. bank, if you're wiring money through a U.S. financial institution, you have to disclose who you actually are. Now, the purpose of this is it interfaces with a bigger system of laws known as the Anti-Money Laundering Regulations, or AML. Now, these are intended, this system of laws, which has been around for decades and it's enforced by a part of the U.S. Department of Treasury known as FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And it's intended to stop things like terrorist financing, arms trafficking, human trafficking, genocide, those kinds of activities, which all require money, of course, are the AML framework seeks to identify when those suspicious transactions are happening and to hold the money and stop it and allow them to be investigated and those involved in that behavior to be arrested and prosecuted. It's an absolutely essential and integral component of our ability as a nation to stay safe, for our national security, and to prosecute the worst people on earth. Now, when you look at this, I think about three of the more famous or recent cases. Okay, so there was Wachovia Bank that was fined $350 billion because it was engaging in transactions for a huge amount of Mexican cartels. Hitmen were being paid, drugs were being moved, kidnappings were happening. All of that was being laundered through Wachovia Bank, and that's why they got fined that amount. Binance, which was recently fined $4.3 billion because they engaged in and allowed 100,000 suspicious transactions to occur involving Hamas, ISIS, and Al Qaeda. Obviously, whatever they were doing was bad and people died. Deutsche Bank was fined $630 million for accepting $10 billion in transactions from Russian customers, some of which was connected to illicit activities in Central Africa and in Eastern Ukraine. So these are the kinds of things that the anti-money laundering laws are intended to stop, to locate, to allow the prosecution of. Donald Trump has, by revoking the enforcement of the Corporate Transparency Act, which is necessary to make the AML work, okay, it's like the steering wheel and the car is AML, he suspended that. So he's making basically this huge system of laws that we've been relying upon for decades, basically making them overnight substantially more ineffective. Now, what could be the purpose behind this? Well, there is no good reason to do this whatsoever. And people will, in fact, directly die and suffer around the world because of what he did. So this is not a convenience thing. It's not an economic thing. It's not something to reduce unnecessary regulatory burdens on businesses in the United States. It is literally to hide criminality. That's it, and that's all. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll have more of these short videos to explain all the crazy stuff that Trump is doing. I appreciate you watching. Have a beautiful day.